All right. Welcome to the 13th episode of the iGaming Next podcast. Today we have with us Jesper Kärrbrink, the chairman of Green Jade Games, Internet Vikings, Paraplay, and Seago. Am I saying that right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. How are you today, Jesper?
I'm fine, thank you, and thanks for having me here. It's going to be fantastically exciting.
Yeah, same for me as well. I think this is a long time coming actually to have you on here, Jesper. You're one of the strongest opinionated people in the industry, I would say. But for those who don't know you, do you want to just give us a brief introduction, perhaps?
Yes, I can do that. I'm 56 this year, being CEO for the last 30 years, basically, in media industry, internet e-commerce, but also in the gaming industry. I was the CEO for Svenska Spel and also for Mr. Green Limited, and now the chairman of 4 iGaming companies. So I have a background in this, and I've been following this industry for the last 15 years, and I think it's a fantastic industry. It's such an amazing place to be with so much clever people, and it also has this balance of responsibility and commercial and things like that. So I really love this industry.
Yeah, it's fantastic to have you here. And yes, but to start things off, I mean, I've known you, from a distance, perhaps for quite a number of years. Actually, I've been in the industry for a long time. But I mean, Jesper, your resume is longer than my arm. I mean, you started in gaming 2004. You have had CEO positions since 1993. You do swim runs. You are an extreme person in many ways. Jesper, the sky is the limit for you. But what is your goal in life, with all of this in mind?
To enjoy myself, to make sure that I have whatever I do with 100% commitment, and I have fun while doing it, and that goes from everything: the people I hang out with, the jobs I take, the books I've been writing, the races I've been running, etc., etc. If it's not fun, don't do it. It's for that. And I don't think everything is fun. And other people would think I'm crazy doing a coast to coast in UK over 4 days when you're running, biking, and paddling and swimming. I loved it. So that's up to wherever you are. But my goal in life is to do things that really makes me happy. That's yeah.
Yeah, I love it. That's a good mantra. I agree with that. I agree with that as well.
And when you do that, then things comes automatically. If you have fun when you're doing it, you will probably do it quite good. And if you do things quite good, then you can do the next thing and the next thing, and then suddenly you build a career without planning it. But if you from my point of view, if you plan a career and I want to do this, I have to do this, then it becomes kind of a pressure on you. And then I think it's more easy to slip. And we all know that the pressure will come anyway, because when you take a responsibility for something, you have to deliver. So there will always be pressure there. And you don't have to put more pressure on yourself than what other people are already doing, because then I think that's one of the fastest ways to fail, when you have to prove too much to yourself. I mean, take things with a smile. Yes, be determined, etc., etc. But you need to have some distance to yourself as well.
That's true. I mean, just on that note, before we go into the topic of today, which is the bright future of the iGaming industry, these extreme races and things that you do. I mean, I am on a smaller path myself to that. I've run a couple of marathons and so forth. But obviously, people, when they hear about these kind of extreme long distance sports that you take on, they think probably that you're a bit crazy. And I mean, how do you tie that in with your job that you're doing? Do you feel that goes hand in hand with the career that you have as well? Kind of working on mental strength and these type of things. Why do you take on these challenges, first of all?
First of all, I don't think I could have performed as much. I won't say as good, but as much in my career as I've done without doing all the training as well. And of course, when the kids were small and everything, it was a puzzle. You wake up like very, very early in the morning, and you do your hour and a half in the morning before they wake up. And when there's about time for them to be in the trolley sleeping, you take the trolley running, etc., etc. So that's a puzzle, of course it is. But then this becomes part of your lifestyle. I needed my hour and a half training every day. basically. And when you do that, and we should also remember, I done long races, absolutely, but we're talking the top and the bottom 20%. So the achievement in itself, you can just, it's a physical, of course, but it's as much mental. You have to decide that, go through the pain, take that hill, swim that distance, find that bike, etc., etc. So it's as much a mental thing, and also strengthen you mentally. I mean, you know that you're capable of coping with these things, and that helps you in life. So for me, this goes hand in hand. And yeah, you only have 24 hours, so you have to prioritize those. These days, I watch basically no TV series or films at all. I mean, I took away all that stuff and instead try to train those hours and things like that. And of course, you have to have a fully understanding wife and family to some extent as well. So it helps.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Thank you, Jesper. So I want to go back to 2004 to start with in this discussion. Actually, you're the CEO of Svenska Spel, the monopoly in Sweden, and obviously today you are a quite strong voice within the industry against overregulation and for an open market and so forth. Can you tell us a little bit, like, what did you learn during your time at Svenska Spel? If we take the perspective of the monopoly itself.
I mean, that's an interesting question. It's a really interesting because the history of gaming is monopolies or oligopoles, but most likely monopoly. And when you see that as the first time, you think, that's a way for the state to control the taxes, and it's a way for the state to control the downside of gambling, which is the problematic gambling sector. Yes, it is to some extent, or was to some extent, but it's also the fact that the gaming industry, before we had casinos, then we talked about large pools. All the big state-owned companies basically comes from large pools, whether it's Lotto, sports pool, or things like that. And then the larger the companies, the better the game becomes. If you play the Lotto, you don't want to win like 200 euros. You want to win 200 million euros or 20 million euros. And to do that, you need big pools. So the gaming industry has always, or historically, naturally been put together by very large and very few companies. And then they also have becoming monopolies, so to speak. But then 2000, with internet, and especially in Sweden, being very early on online, in the entire internet era, they started to kind of crack and start to shift. So when I started at Svenska Spel, yes, it was a monopoly, but without a monopoly position, because we had like 20, 30 really good and really strong competitors, like at that time Unibet or Kindred today, and Betsson was early there.
It was poker at that time. That was the big thing.
Yes. That was the big thing. And Svenska Spel became the first state licensed operator having a license for poker. I mean, that was a huge thing for us, of course. So, but seeing this, I realized quite fast that monopoly is not the way to go. I couldn't stand on the barrier saying that, but between the lines, that was our message. Please open the market, give everyone the same opportunities, which also means that Svenska Spel would get opportunities to go internationally and to sell the casino games, etc., etc. And for me, that was a given. At the same time you do this, you have to protect the vulnerable player. You're going to use that. And to do that, you need to block out the non-regulated operators, what we today call the black market. And at that time, I talked about putting a cap on the market. You kind of block it. And I talked about IP blocking and things like that. Being totally misunderstood. Everyone hated me, saying I was like a Chinese dictator wanting to have IP blockings. But what I meant was to open the market for everyone that could have a license, and then close the markets for those who don't want to have a license. And interesting enough, we're still debating this today, like 15 years later. It's the same question, it's the same debate, and we haven't really solved it yet.
But it's proven that it's not really a viable solution in any case. I mean, no. The operators are creative enough to be able to get around those IP blocks quite easily,
yes.
right?
No, we see that there's a lot of operators actually being in China, even though they have this blocking. So you're absolutely right, and I've learned since then. But more from a philosophical point of view, we wanted to stress the opportunity to open up a market and at the same time protecting it. And we still need to protect the regulated market. And I agree with you, IP blocking is not the right way to go. There are other ways to do that.
Okay, what would some other ways be, would you say? Because this is the $1 million question, right?
No, but that's payment, block the payment.
Payment blocking, kind of like
Yes, have the bank. It's not foolproof. It's not 100%, absolutely not. But to some extent, I think that's the fastest and I wouldn't say simplest, but the less complicated way to go. Yes.
Is there anyone who have gotten that right except for the US?
The US, but the US also, everyone knows that if you kind of go the wrong way there, they're gonna haunt you.
You don't want to screw with the US.
No, exactly.
That's the thing, right?
So that helps them. But I think Norway come quite a bit with this. I still think that they are doing it wrong because I think their market should be open, being part of the EES and having a very aggressive monopoly in Norsk Tipping when it comes to marketing and such like that. Fantastic company doing all the right stuff. So I'm not saying that. We had a good relationship with them at Svenska Spel, and I still hold them strongly as a very good operator. But if you look at their marketing, it's very commercial. So in my point of view, there's no reason for them to keep the monopoly. Having that said, they've still been very successful in blocking to some extent the external or the international operators.
Do you know the canalization rate in Norway approximately?
Sorry?
Do you know the channelization rate?
No, I don't have that. No,
it'd be interesting.
No, I can't speculate. Sorry, but I think it's quite high. Especially since they have the online casino and they do quite. Plus, the Norwegian are very, very traditionally they want to use the Norwegian product. Still, Norway has been a fantastic market for many of the operators during many years. So it's not a full canalization, absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. So that was actually so as the CEO of Svenska Spel at that time, I mean, you saw yourself almost like a commercial CEO, profit-driven within Svenska Spel. Would you say, I mean, from an outside point of view, it was quite clear that Svenska Spel was driven for profits, not for player protection, number one, let's say, like compare that to the alcohol monopoly, which was very aggressively marketing to stop drinking alcohol, actually, whereas Svenska Spel was the opposite. So would you, and Sweden got a lot of flack from that from the EU level at that time as well. From the inside, was that actually how the organization was operated as well?
No, I wouldn't say. Of course, we have our sales target, and it's a commercial company and made a huge amount of profits delivering that to the States, like 500 euros every year. So of course, it's a commercial company.
500 million euro.
500 million euros a year, in profit. So trying to, and we did all this stuff. I mean, building lean organizations, saving costs, etc., but also finding players and keeping the players happy. And at that time, we talked about canalization and canalization in this point. It's better to get there's a market out there. People wants to play, and it's better to play with Svenska Spel because at that point we had a higher standard on responsible gaming than most other gaming operators. I'm not saying that that's the case today, but at that point, like 10, 15 years ago, Svenska Spel definitely had. We were the first one introducing PlayScan, a tool similar to what everyone has today, but at that time that was totally unique. It was invented by us. It was an idea that I came up with. We invested a lot of money into that one. So and then we launched it. So I would say that player responsibilities was extremely high on the agenda. We had some games that we didn't launch because they were not seen as okay to launch, etc., and we backed away from this in a way that you shouldn't have done if you were a commercial company. At the same time, we were making money, and this is the balance I'm talking about. This is a fantastic balance, and I'm coming at that point. I kind of learned that the relationship between the problematic gamblers and what we do in terms of marketing and in terms of game development is not as clear as people want to think, and that is a learning that I took already then and still believe in. I mean, if we look at this from a data point of view, Sweden, the way we measure it in Sweden, we have approximately 2% of the population are problematic gamblers. Of these 2%, approximately 0.5% percentage point is compulsive gamblers. In UK, the same number is 0.7%. So I think UK and Sweden are comparing the later part of this. But let's stay with the 2%. We have in Sweden, we've been measuring this in prevalence studies for 20, 25 years. It's been 2% all the time. Actually, if this trend goes anywhere right now, I think it goes down. If I remember correctly, the last study that was made, it pointed on 1.75% or something like this. Meanwhile, during these 20 years, gaming has exploded, totally exploded. We're talking about availability 24/7, in your pocket, in your computer, marketing in every channels, faster games, slam stop, super turbo spin, hundreds of new games every month, etc., etc. Still 2%. So what we have here is a status quo on the number of problematic gamblers. I'm not saying that that's by this it's not a problem. Yes, it's still a problem. These 2%, I would say that 100% of these 2% ends up in the casinos. So we have a huge responsibility of taking care of these people and not draining their wealth and taking all the money, etc., etc. But back to the data again, the relationship between Betsson coming in and Unibet coming in there in the early 2000s and Sherry coming in, etc., etc. They were not driving the number of problematic gamblers at all. They've still been 2%. So and that learned me a lot. So here, this is an interesting fact to think about in this debate.
Yeah, exactly. And so that leads us then obviously to 2020 now for going forward in the situation we are at the moment. And from an industry perspective, it feels very much that we are heading towards darker time. This is a little bit the feeling that's within the industry at the moment. There's a lot of stigma in the industry at the moment that's being built up. We're dealing with a lot of over-regulation from certain regulators now, and it almost feels like it's becoming almost like a competition between the regulators who can be the toughest. And Peter Paul de Schoy, the head of the Trade Association of the Netherlands, I think he said it best, is that gaming has no friends. So
yeah, exactly. That's the line we use. No one gets plus points to defend the gaming industry, unfortunately.
No one gets plus point to defend the gaming industry, and it's a tricky situation we are in now. So how did we get here, Jesper? What happened?
Oh, that's a $1 million question. It's
marketing too aggressive.
Yeah. Sure. I would like to start in the broader perspective. It's the industry in itself lead to this, and because not everyone is gambling in the way we're talking about the casino. It's just a couple of percent, like 7% of the population is playing casino games, slots. And a large part of the decision makers and the establishment are not playing slots. Hence, it's someone else. It's easy to look down on these people actually playing games. And so that on a large level, we started on a low level. And then, of course, we have not helped with all the marketing we have had, kind of imposing that image even more, and also coming out as extremely profitable, to some extent to the level of greedy, and all these things together has not put us in a good position. Would we have been as nicely perceived as, I don't know, restaurants or some other entertainment service, cinemas, films, without us being overexposing our products and being a bit too greedy? I don't think so, because the underlying sentiment here is that I don't gamble, hence it has to be something bad and ugly, and look, you can lose your money. I don't want to lose my money. I'm too clever to lose my money. And that kind of elitism among those people being in the positions of setting the agendas will always be difficult for the gaming industry. We've always been a bit stigmatized. We have made it worse by being a bit too aggressive, or being too aggressive, and perhaps coming out as too greedy. So it's a difficult position. It's a difficult mindset to change as well. But we have to start working with this one.
Yeah, so that is the question, and like, I mean, where do we start turning this around, so to say? I mean, in the position the industry is in now, it feels like this is there is no light in the end of the tunnel. It is the feeling at the moment. But I know that you have a different outlook than I have that I'm mentioning now on this. Can you explain a little bit? Like, what do you see? Where do you see the industry going? Where do you see? How do we see ourselves coming out of this? Let's say, how do we turn this around into the more positive outlook for the industry?
I mean, first of all, we have to realize that the hole we dig is quite deep, and we have to climb out of it together. And that's a challenge, of course, because gathering the regulated operators is not that difficult. And there are some fantastic initiatives among the biggest operators in UK really driving this. GVC, William Hill, Flutter, all these big ones are seeing this, and they are clever enough to realize that this is not good for them if it's not good for the industry. So there are initiatives, absolutely. But then we have all the non-regulated operators, the black ones that continue being greedy and aggressive, etc., etc., and they will always give a bad reputation. It's like having the cousin in the family that does all the crazy shit, and that kind of spoils the family name. So that is a difficult thing to deal with. But I think we have to get together as an industry, starting to see this as entertainment. And of course, what we need to do is to address the main problem, and that's the problematic gamblers. Yes, they are only in UK 0.7% of the population, but for them this is a disaster. They are ruining themselves, they are losing their families, and some of them are even committing suicide. So this is the place where we have to start, which means we have to start to being a bit more less greedy. We have to make sure that we can run these companies on what people can afford to gamble, and we can do that. We know that.
Yes, but how? But I mean, it sounds great. You know, the industry needs to come together. We need to make sure that we are not greedy and so forth. But I mean, how do you take it further? How do you actually bring the industry?
How we can bring the industry together? I think that is happening now. More and more, everyone sees this, and there are more and more groups talking into this, and there are more and more trade organizations created not only in UK but around the globe, and around the market. We have in Malta as well. So coming together, that I think will sort itself. Then we come to the more operational part of it. How can we? First of all, let's start changing the marketing as companies. Focus more on entertainment. Don't have to be speedy, fast, tomorrow, win more, but put it on the entertainment side, because that is what people still want to do. They want to be entertained, and we can learn from the Netflix. We can learn from the others being a bit more soft in their approach, but still doing extremely good marketing. So that's one thing. The second thing is also to introduce more entertaining games. And now I'm gonna push my sword for Green Jade Games here. But we are developing casino games today where you actually have a skill-based game that takes longer time to play. It's more cognitive than just playing the slots. And if we can introduce this, we will get a new player base. The player base might even grow a bit from the 7, perhaps up to 10, 50%. That for every percent we grow the industry or the player base, the stigmatization will go down. And then we will find new people that will talk a bit more positive about us. I played this fantastic game, a match-free game, candy prize or whatever, and I got 10,000 points. And by the way, I won like €5. That's a different kind of mentality. And then, but then the really important thing here is to, when we look at the responsible gaming side of it, I think we should, and this is perhaps for the regulator to decide on, but that's affordability checks. If we could run affordability checks on all the players, then we should know whether this player could afford what they're playing for or not. And just give me, there are some fantastic solutions out there. I know Be Better is one of them. They're having this system for affordability checks. I would like that to be an industry-wide initiative, preferably driven by the regulators. But if the regulators don't take that, I think we should as an industry. So you take a market, and Be Better is working in UK. So I'm going to use this as an example. And I enter a site, affordability checks. The system asks me, I mean, they see I report my revenue as £3,200 a month. And this you can check in an instant with tax authorities, etc. In Sweden, that would be super simple. It would take a millisecond. Okay, good. And then I put my loss limit. There should be mandatory loss limits, in my opinion. I put them myself. I decide what I want to lose. And then I put the loss limits of £1,000. And then there's a red flag. Okay, this guy is making 3,000. He wants to spend 1,000 on gambling. Yeah. No, that's not okay. And then we have the scanner tools. We start telling this guy, okay, Jesper, you have to prove that you actually have more money than you're earning, like whatever on your bank account or something like that. Good. If not, you have to lower it. And if we start there, because all problematic gambling starts and ends with spending more than you can afford. This is one of the few addictions where the body doesn't take harm.
Yeah.
There's no, like tobacco, drugs, alcohol, the body takes harm when you consume. It doesn't here. So it starts and ends with you spending more money than you should. So if we could find a solution for affordability, then it's up to me. If I want to set 500 euros or 1,000 euro a month and I can afford it, let me spend it the way I want. Super fast slots, slow lotto games, high stake, low stakes, live casino. I mean, what I see now is regulators trying to reduce problematic gambling by making the product less appealing.
Exactly.
That's like asking the wine. But that's like asking the winemakers to make shitty wine and thinking you get less alcoholics. I mean, we know that it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and I think it's the same here. And the games are developing because society is developing. Today's society is much, much faster. I have much more to choose from. I have not one hamburger restaurant. I have 200. I don't have one game operator. I have 200. You can't stop that. That's part of evolution, of development. You can't stop that.
But Jesper, sorry to interrupt here. I hear everything you're saying makes perfect sense, you know, and I think this is something the industry is good at the moment, is to figure out these type of solution that they make sense. I mean, this is the way to solve problematic gambling if we can implement them correctly. But then comes the next challenge, which is when you explain this to the regulator. I mean, take the Swedish regulator and whichever regulator at the moment in Europe. Do you really think that is what their agenda is, to actually find a good, reasonable solution? Or because it feels sometimes that they aren't really interested in listening to these solutions, perhaps, and perhaps the issue is them.
Yeah, no, well, I think you're a bit unfair to the regulators. I think the regulators are doing their job, and to some extent are doing a really, really good job. The problem is the politicians. It's the politicians who sets the agenda for the regulator. Then the regulator has to adapt to that one. I think discussing this with regulators, they understand this. That's not a big problem. Problem is the politicians, and the politicians don't have a fucking clue about this. And we saw that in Sweden with this 5,000 krona monthly or weekly deposit limit during Corona. It's like it's stupid. It's stupid on so many levels. So it just makes me mad. And that's the problem. The politicians, and as a politician today, there are no points to be gained in protecting the gaming industry. But in the establishment, you get some pat on the shoulders because you nailed those guys. They're greedy and they're aggressive, and you nailed them. You are my hero. And this is the difference. If they would try to do the same with alcohol, you shouldn't compare things like this. But I can't. I have to sometimes. I mean, it will never happen because alcohol is consumed by everyone, by politicians, by their peers, by their friends, etc., etc., etc. While they are not consuming casino games at all, and hence don't really understand it, and hence see that as something a bit below them. And that's the main problem. And that will always be a problem for us. But as I said before, I think we kind of boosted that problem by being too aggressive.
Yeah, even more so. You know what?
Yeah. But sorry, but I should answer your question.
Sure.
No, we should speak to the regulators, but we should definitely speak to the politicians. We need more trade unions. We need more lobbyists that goes direct into those groups with solutions, not with blankets, not with fuzzy talks, but saying, yes, we think we can solve this problem by combining fintech and our gaming technology, and we can make affordability checks. And the arguments are there, so they should basically not be able to say no to that.
Yeah, that is true. But if it's interesting, I think, because if we would go back to there was a window of time actually where we had the industry actually had a chance to get the population behind them, and I think that was in the 2000s during the poker boom. Because during the poker boom, it was so infused in the Swedish culture to play poker that there was a pretty heavy lobbying going on to make poker clubs legal, to be able to. There was a little poker club in every single little village at that time. Everyone played poker. The interesting thing is that there was actually a window of time where the industry had the population behind them in a more active way. It looks like you are comparing it. Maybe that is the key. Maybe the industry needs to lobby for a second poker boom.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic. But we should also remember at that point, Svenska Spel and ATG was really the bad guys. So I'm somehow always ended up on the bad guy side here, because Svenska Spel was the problem. The Svenska Spel was hypocritic. Svenska Spel was the devil himself. They had a monopoly. They had a lot of problematic gamblers. They were making more money, etc., etc., etc. So yes, at that time, the internet part of gambling or gaming had an opportunity of changing this, but it was still some negative. I mean, I've been in so many TV debates and interviews with people about responsible gambling, because at that point it was Svenska Spel who took 95% of those questions. Today, it's more on the larger casinos who takes this. So we have to understand that we will always be stigmatized.
Yeah.
There will never be a day where we are the heroes. Could be one day, but that will be one day where we are the heroes. At some point, so what we have to do is to climb this gradually and slowly. And at the same time, as long as we feel confident that we are doing all we can, then we can't do more. And then whatever they say, they can just say it. I can take it every day. But if I feel and know that, okay, I'm sliding a bit here because I need this revenue and I want this revenue and I'm a bit grayish here, well, then we are kind of talking with two tongues, and that's always difficult.
So I can understand what you're saying, Jesper, as well, and we can only do our best. But what if and it feels a little bit now that the iGaming industry is at the crossroads at the moment. This overregulation is happening very aggressively, very, very quickly. The effects in the Swedish market is yet to be understood, but the expectations are that the channelization rates will heavily go down in Sweden. Gustav Hofstedt of BOS estimated all the way down to 50% even, and we are now starting to see other markets adopting similar style of overregulation as well. So the iGaming industry is kind of at the crossroads at the moment. And yes, you are saying that we can only do our best. But what if it goes to the point where the iGaming industry has a choice to either try to be the good guys and try to do everything right, or to take the mantle as the villains and adopt the gray and black market style? I mean, do you think that it will come down to a choice like that eventually?
I mean, we see already now operators planning to withdraw from Sweden, not to enter Sweden black, absolutely not, because these are proper and perhaps even stock listed companies. But we know that there are some discussions. Whether they will do it or not, I don't know, but there are some discussions or such discussions, and that is the first sign, because gambling is not going down. Once again, the gambling has been growing as a total with GDP for the last 20 years. Then online gambling has going like this and so forth. But gambling as a phenomenon will never disappear. So those players will always play somewhere. The players being problematic players, they will go where it's probably is totally black, and where no one gives a shit about how they feel and what they do, and where the money comes from. And by that, the regulator are losing the grip of the gambling market and kind of sabotage their own regulation. And that's where we're heading for right now. Will companies, I think a lot of companies will try as long as possible to stay within regulation. And if they can't, they will leave the market and enter into other markets where the regulation actually works, because we have markets like that. And
which ones do you think work?
That's a good one. No, but Denmark works. Denmark works. Denmark works, I would say. UK up to this point, I think, has worked quite well, even though it's on the stretch in some extent, in some part right now. Take away the 5,000 krona ridiculous limit in Sweden, which is just a political whim. I think Sweden has worked up until this point. So the balance is thin, but there are regulations working, absolutely. But to answer your question, I don't think the industry will just withdraw and go black. No. But gaming will always be there. So the black part will grow on behalf of the white part, because gaming is not going down. And this is the strange thing. Regulators are measuring the regulated part, and they will see gaming go down eventually. But they will see the number of compulsory gaming staying the same, or even increase, because now they are leaving Spel and go black and things like that. So they will come to sit and say, look at this. We are getting more and more problematic gamblers. We have to impose even more regulations on the regulated ones. And it doesn't make sense. But that's a risk that we're heading for right now.
Yeah, that's true. So the topic today, Jesper, is bright future. It has been very bright discussion so far. Maybe we need to change it. Yeah. Okay, but we do have some time left. Okay. Okay. I mean, we have laid out the framework for what the challenges are at the moment. We have laid out the framework for how to improve the industry, and I agree with you. I think that particularly the major organizations are committed to do the best that they can to create a good landscape for the players, and all the major players are committed to do good things. We've seen GVC just the other day announcing kind of restructuring in the VIP teams for this reason, and the large organizations are seeing that the way to go into the future is to protect their players. This will be the key for the industry to start flourishing again.
Yes, it has to. And once again, there's a financial reason for this, because a problematic gambler, you keep him or her for a couple of months, and then that player is burned out for life. For life, never comes back. If you can get the problematic gambler to go down to a normal gambling pattern, they will probably gamble for life and within their limits, because they love gambling. It's what's taken there from the beginning. And we should also remember there's a lot of people out there really enjoying our product. They rather spend 400 euros a month on gambling than going on restaurants. Because it suits them and where they are in their life, etc., etc. So there's I talked a lot about this at Mr. Green and at Svenska Spel. It's a commercial reason to be responsible. Short term, yes, you might lose some, absolutely, but take that loss. We can afford that, because you get the long-term sustainability, and that's what GV says. Once again, they have the smartest people in those big companies, and that's what they are seeing. Everyone wants to have regulated markets, because that's the long-term. That's the best guarantee for a long-term sustainable market. So that's the route to go.
Yeah, and at the moment, it's I mean, as an outsider, just having had discussions with you and others, it seems very much that the larger operators are investing huge amount of money into compliance checks and being able to stay compliant in general. Do you think going forward, as these tools and checks improve, do you think kind of automating those type of processes, is that something that will be key for the industry to then focus more on innovation and these type of things? How do you see this compliance?
Yes, so absolutely. if you sort the compliance part and you sort the responsible gaming part, in the sense that we are down to minimum of people playing for more than they can afford, then the rest will be focused on what we're good at, offering fantastic entertainment. And I think and this is where kind of the bright future comes. There will always be a want for gambling. I mean, it's been there since the first coin was invented. We have been gambling in some way, and that will continue. But we also see how entertainment as a phenomenon is exploding. We have more and more free time. We are automating more and more things on work. We are connected around the clock. So we spend more time on entertainment. And this is a fantastic entertainment industry. And that's why I think the future is so interesting. We will be part of the developed entertainment industry going forward. And technology-wise, if we see this now, how computers and smartphones are developing, we will be able to produce even more advanced and even more fun game. Take 5G as an example. That's mind-boggling in what we can do with games and download data. We can build virtual reality games. We can build live games where we are people kind of sitting in the same room, etc. That's what evolution and others can do with this will be amazing. So in that longer perspective, I see that the future for the gaming industry as such is fantastic. And we will, at some point, either overcome or adapt or find solutions for the regulations we have right now. And when we've done that and we are in that phase, there are so many opportunities of providing fantastic entertainment.
Yeah, and something that I've noticed now, I mean, you mentioned Evolution Gaming, and I just did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with Todd Hasshalter and the Chief Product Officer of Evolution Gaming, and he showed the crazy time that they are releasing now, which is an incredibly innovative game, and it's kind of bringing this kind of game show feeling into the person. I mean, this is very, very innovative type products. Is that the way to kind of build away the stigma that the industry has now with these quick kind of like useless, let's say, games that can be perceived sometimes? You know what I mean? It's
yes,
it's more.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I a year ago I would have said yes to that. Now being a year and a half in developing skill-based casino games, and I see, and we love them, and they play fantastically well, and they address a new both a current but also a new target group. So definitely we need to get more entertaining games like our Jade puzzle. That's a puzzle game, but also a casino game at the same time. It takes like 5-6 minutes to play it through instead of 3 seconds for a spin. We are coming out with a first-person shooter game where you are the gunner of a galactic ship, and you're shooting enemies, and you stake and you win money. It's a fantastically fun game. Totally different to a slot. So yes, that we have to develop these kinds of games. As for the reasons you said, we will broaden the audience, we will get less stigmatized, but at the same time, we should also remember there's a lot of people out there loving playing slots, and there's nothing wrong with that. So developing these kinds of game is not a reaction on how mundane and simple slots are. They are fantastic in their simplicity. Sometimes I want to just have a couple of minutes or half an hour of no thinking at all and just playing slots and seeing that exciting and seeing my cash balance go up and down. And so these games have a future, definitely, and we are iterating these versions and they're becoming better and better. But as you said, we need to, on top of that, we also need to add more advanced games. We need to add more entertaining games. Exactly what Evolution is doing, exactly what we are trying to do with our games. And I mean, my vision is that we take our engine where we mix 100% skill with 100% RNG, and you put that into I shouldn't say Fortnite because that's mostly played by kids, but Call of Duty, and you're above 18, then you can choose the route. Do I want to go left or right? If I go right, I play exactly the same game, but I'm betting. I'm staking. If I hit that enemy, he might be worth 10 euros. If I hit that enemy, 0. If I hit that enemy, he might be 20 euros. It's a casino game, but in this, and if we do this, then gaming will become normalized. Then people will not see this as gaming. They will see this as entertainment with a new level of excitement. And this is what we are trying to build. And back to, if we can sort the affordability check, then those games is not the problem. Because then I know that this Peter over here, 32 years old, playing this Call of Duty, he can afford to spend that 25 euros. Bang, let him do that. And he will have a fantastic fun time. He's playing his favorite game at the same time that he's got the chance of winning 10,000 euros or whatever the highest price is. And we are Green Jade now investing into finding those games, and we are really early into this one. But still, we are taking the best social games we can find on App Store, mimic them, and put in a gaming element into these games, because we are 100% sure that this is the road we're going. If that happens this year or in 5 years, we don't really know. That's also why we're also making slots and what we call knockout slots, where we kind of mix these things at the same time to make sure that we hit the right window.
Yeah, you've been the innovative, the innovator now, Jesper. It's fantastic, fantastic to see. So what makes you convinced that this is the future? So let me just argument against that perhaps would be that games in general could be seen as being marketed towards underage people. How, like from a regulatory point of view, do you see that as a challenge from your side?
Yes and no, of course. I mean, a match-free game. The games we have today are, match-free games and puzzle games are mostly played by an adult generation, I would say. We have not made any kind of childish games yet and turn them into, and we shouldn't either. No. We have to be very cautious about that. At the same time, I think if it's one thing that is 100% guaranteed among the regulated operators, is that they all handle the age limits. I would be super surprised if there are any underage player in any of the regulated casinos. That wouldn't happen. So that should be taken out of the equation, I think.
But the reason I'm saying it because
we are doing some films on our games. We don't publish those on YouTube. We just publish them on locked channels on Vimeo for casino managers to see and so forth. So you have a point there. It could be that, but still, these are more games for an older generation, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Because the reason I mention it is, for example, Casumo got a lot of flack for being a brand that can be perceived as targeting kids, for example, which is obviously not, but that can be the perception sometimes. So I guess that's something that you take into account when you.
And that's a problem, because that part of the regulation is so much based on feelings rather than data.
Exactly.
And if they looked at data, they would realize that Casumo has no one under the age of 18, and it's like so and I don't that debate in UK, I think, me as a Swede, I can't grasp it. They want to ban gaming companies from football jerseys, but beer brands is okay. It's like, don't they have underage drinking in UK? It's I can't get my head around that kind of argument. So but probably back to the stigmatization of the industry.
Yeah, exactly. Back to square one. Yeah.
And then to answer your question, we have a lot of data on this one. We see that is there a need for these games? Yeah, for the first time, we see some of the bigger operators are actually flattening out or even declining in the age group 18 to 25. And that tells you something, because these, we could almost call them kids, 18 to coming up here and becoming adults, 18 to 25. They are grown up with a total different mindset when it comes to gaming. For them, slot is like, I explain to my kids, and they just look at me like, yes, Dad, but why should I play this? It's like, then I give them Jade Puzzle. They're like, wow, they're playing, they are putting the pieces together and think this is super funny. And so we see that. We also see there's some surveys done in US by a company called Blue Synergy doing the same as Green Jade, but on the land-based casino, and how 95% of the population or the people asked has played mobile app games, computer games, or video games. 7% has played casinos. So, I mean, there are so much in this data. And they also say that if a casino game were more like my app game, I would probably play it more. So there are data telling us this. And this will come. I'm 100% sure about this. There will be this mix of skill and RNG that will kind of broaden the game experience, and there is an audience for that, definitely.
Interesting. So Jesper, I super interesting to hear your thoughts in general. Like always, I mean it's fantastic. I have one last question for you actually that I'd like to hear your opinion on in general as well when we look into the future of gaming, which is the fact that there's on the M&A side of things, there's been a lot of consolidation happening in the industry lately. The natural example is obviously Flutter and PokerStars, and now also Evolution Gaming and NetEnt emerging, and countless others. If we look at,
I could add William Hill, Mr. Green to that.
You can, you've been a part of that obviously yourself in this process. Do you think in a couple of years' time that the industry is going to consolidate to only a few major players?
Yes.
Is that good or bad?
I think it's good. To go back to where we started with the discussion about monopolies and oligopoles, and they being that for natural reasons, this is a business of scale. You need large pools, and also you need large audiences to get to maximize profitability. And if you maximize profitability, you don't have to run for the more vulnerable players. This is just a feeling, but I think the smaller you are, the more dependent you are on a smaller group of big players. If we look at the data from that, I read the interview with no, it was not an interview. It was never mind. If you look at the data from the larger operator, their stake, I can take it from Svenska Spel. It was like 0.5% of the player base was the VIPs, the large players. And I would think that GVC and William Hill and has the same, while a smaller operator, it could be up to 10-12%. So the larger you become, the less dependent on the VIPs you will be, meaning that you could be more strict on actually putting in a framework where they are not spending more than they should without that affecting you. I think that could go faster. So that's a good thing in itself. And then, as I said before, the industry is a scaling business. So the bigger you are, the more money you will make. And then also the players want to play with the safe alternatives and with the big pools. So it's kind of natural in this industry to have what we see now with 400 casinos is abnormality in my view. I think having 20 really big operators is more natural, considering how the industry is structured. So yes, I definitely think we will continue seeing consolidation. It's also a way to have the muscles to take on a global presence. If you want to do Europe, you want to do Latin America, you want to do the US, you want to do Asia, you can be pretty sure that some of these markets will always cost more than they can deliver right now. And hence you need the others to fund that and support that. So yes, this is a global industry. A game that works in Sweden also works in Germany, also works in the US, and to a large extent also works in Asia. So there are so much synergies in being big. And yeah, so there we are. I mean, that's probably the reasons, because that's the reason why I think we will see continuous consolidation.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it is a good argument as well to say that also the larger organizations can think ahead a lot further. So like you're saying, they don't need to take this short-term silly decisions that isn't
exactly. They can be much cooler on marketing. They can be much cooler on game development. They can afford to put some slow games out there to test the market and to and also the competition on media space will be less, which means I don't have to scream speed and win. I can just build my brand and I can offer my products, and we become as a normal part of the entertainment industry as we should be.
Brilliant, Jesper. We started this discussion with the iGaming industry came as a monopoly, so it's been a monopoly. Then there's been a period where we've been all over the place, and we ended the discussion with, in the future, we'll have not a monopoly, but we'll have consolidation to the point where it will be an oligopoly.
And let's see if I'm correct. I mean, we talked about this before. You should never talk about the future, because only idiots and perhaps stock analysts actually believe they can predict the future. And I've been ranting for an hour about what I think. So it might be that I'm labeled an idiot here in a couple of years. You never know.
Or you'll be a genius.
I can live with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Jesper, thank you so much for today. Is there anything you'd like to add in the end here as well? Anything we missed?
No, Pierre, please continue this. You're doing a fantastic job with iGaming Next. Both the Friday kind of gathering around the fire. It's fantastic, and it's been a pleasure being part of this one. And I'm just feeling that I've been babbling. So I will probably have some nice criticism from my family later on today when they watch this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Anytime you want to be a part of this, the door is always open. So
perfect. See you.
Okay, to everyone who listened in, thank you so much, everybody. Have a beautiful Thursday afternoon. Okay, thank you.